Hello and welcome to this new section on how to get right people giving you their best for this course on pre-MBA for undergraduates. So in this section we're going to teach you how to get right people giving their best. So because that is the most important thing as we saw in the last lecture. Once, if you want to do well, the most important things, as John Collins has said in his great book called Good to Great, is not strategy, not anything else, but it is the people. Because people think strategy, they execute strategy, and they make it happen. So we're going to talk to you about how can you get right people giving their best. And in this module, we're going to talk of four things. One, how to get right people. Uh, what are those right people, how to get right people, then how to manage them to get their best or make them give their best, how to develop them because you might be getting right people, but over a period of time they need to develop themselves to keep meeting the new requirements. And if you have right people, they are doing well and they are developing. The challenge is, as Virgin Atlantic chairman says, is how to retain them. So you have those challenges, and we'll talk about. And this constitutes the core of the HR that you need to do, the core of what HR management you will probably learn in a lot more detail when you go and do your MBA. So this gives you a quick overview of the HR management processes in terms of recruitment, performance management, development of people, of your talent, and retention of your talent, right? So let's look at how to get right people. Ready for that? Any thoughts? How do you think you can get right people? So it all starts, as you see on a flow chart on your screen, with defining the right job requirements. Not only job requirements, but the right job requirements. And we will take you through what do we mean by the job requirements and being right. Once you have the right job requirements, you need to then get candidates, source the candidate, which possibly from which you will probably select it. And the first step would be to screen the candidate. Now, screening is about removing the people that do not meet your basic requirements, eliminating the people who do not meet your job requirements at the minimum level. Once you screen the people, then you need to evaluate the remaining candidates and make a selection of the people that you want to consider. Then you need to do the reference check and select the person that you want to join, you want to hire, then make an offer and get acceptance from the person, and finally ensure joining of that person. That's the entire process. Let's look at each of these steps in some quick detail, right? So how do you define the right job requirements? Any thoughts? See, first let's look at what is job requirements. So it is a personal specification of the person that you want to hire for a particular role or a job. And it basically consists of two things. What are the essential attitudes, knowledge, skills that you need from him, and what is nice to have? So it's simply defining the right job means listing the essential and nice to have requirement a person should have for a job under consideration. The challenge, you could say that this is easy, but the challenge is finding these things and then classifying them essential and nice to have on the basis of things that provide surety that once you hire a person on these basis, he would turn out a performance, the best performance that you're looking for him. So that's the whole thing. Now, what does it look? It basically comes as as you see here, a description of the position in which you define the name of the position for which the requirement is being defined, its location, who does it report to, the positions that will report to, and overall responsibilities. And then it's a part of job description. It has what is called job requirements, which is what we're looking for, which says what are the essential and desirable requirements on this position in terms of education, knowledge, skills, experience, demographics, in terms of age, sex, marital status, languages, and what are you willing to pay? And it has, of course, is good to have in this job description prepared by a date, approved by a date, so that it remains valid at all points of time. Now, once you have these job requirements defined, you need to then look at what are the candidates that you need to source. You need to source the candidates. So how do you go about sourcing the candidates? Sourcing, this involves having a pipeline of people for the job that is as per the job requirements that has been laid down. Now, for large companies, this may not be a big issue because people queue up, and if you are a TCS, Infosys, you will get enough number of people. But if you are a small and medium enterprises, including private limited company, it does become a challenge because you may not have the right image and for people to draw to your. Now, let's see what you can do to overcome these challenges and build a healthy pipeline of candidates for the job under consideration. So basically, you need to do three things. You need to work back and say, what is the number of candidates that you want to source? So you have a job position, you know how many people you want to hire, and you need to work back and see how many candidates do you need to source. And that will depend on what has been your experience in hiring people. How many people did you source, and how many out of them you found suitable for. Say, for example, if you have two positions vacant, and if you're seeing that you of the candidates that you source about 10% people are only suitable for hiring, then you know that you need to source 10 times the people that you want to hire. So you determine them. So in this case, it will become 100 people. For if you're 10%, then for two people you need to hire like 20 people. You need to source 20 people if your ratio is 10%, but it's rarely that. You normally would see that it's about 1% to 2%. Then you need to determine your sourcing strategy. How are you going to get these candidates? Are you going to advertise in newspaper? Are you going to consultants? Are you going to go on LinkedIn? So what's your sourcing strategy? And that will determine that will be based on the kind of candidates that you need to source and their media habits. So that's the second thing. And you would need to know that as an HR person. Then the second thing, third would be to execute that sourcing strategy. If you decide to put a place in advertisement, you need to put the right text there, and that will attract people. If you're putting on LinkedIn, you need to put the required text again. So the copy plays an important role in the way you write there, determines how well can you source the candidates. Once you have sourced the candidate, then you need to screen the candidates. So how do you screen the candidates is the question for you. So screening the candidates requires basically eliminating candidates that do not meet the essential job requirement, the musts. And then we carry the remaining ones, people who meet the essential job requirements for a personal interview. Now, now most of the people in the industry do the screening today, but not on a very clearly defined criteria. So here is you need to fix a criteria for screening for each job position in advance, and then proceed with the screening, and they must be the essential requirements. So how do you screen is, you see a nice flow chart here which says that you need to start with agree on the screening criteria with your management, with the person who the position report to, and assess each applicant on that criteria. Now, first thing you need to see is, do you have all the requirements to make that assessment in terms of whether the person has those essential job requirement. If not, then you need to go back to the candidate and get the balance information, because otherwise you may be rejecting a good candidate. If you have all the information, then you need to see whether it meets all the screening criteria. If yes, then that person is shortlisted, and if no, you screen out the candidate. It's as simple as process as that is. Once you have screened the candidates, you need to evaluate the candidates. Now, evaluating the candidates requires what I suggest is to do a personal interview. There are different practices. Now, what I would suggest here is that you need to interview jointly the candidates, the shortlisted candidates, between the line managers and HR, instead of doing separate interviews, because the joint interview cuts down the processing time, as the 2 or 3 interviews done in parallel jointly instead of being done in serial. It allows the selectors who are on a panel to discuss the individual evaluation and come to some consensus so essential for the process, and also ensures that any differences in evaluation are escalated to managing director in an open and amicable way. Having done shortlisted the final candidates, you need to do a reference checks and final selections. Now, how do you do reference check? Well, once you have ranked all the candidates meeting the job requirements fully, other than you need to verify the critical details so far not verified by talking to the previous employers for the experienced candidates and to the institute professors for the fresher. Now, this whole process of reference check is to verify the claims made in the application by the candidate. And sometimes the candidates can make very imaginary achievements. And however, this reference check should not be used as a substitute for evaluation, but for the verification of the person's credential. So how do you do that? You need to select the top 3 candidates from your ranked list of candidates that you've selected. Check what information is not yet verified in the application. Ask the candidate for documentary proof of the such things. Contact the last 3 employers in case of candidates with experience and verify the position held, like by the candidate, duration, achievements listed, strengths and weaknesses, overall satisfaction. With no experience, you need to go back to talk to 3 professors. So 3 people are important. And based on the feedback, which you should either have in writing or in a voice recorded, you are now required to see whether these candidates are selected for the job under consideration. The next step would be to make an offer to those people whose reference check is positive and they have been the best performing in the interview. So how do you make an offer and make sure that they accept it? So once you have done that, what you need to do is to reach an agreement to the maximum offer in terms of the annual cost of the company that can be made to each of these 3 candidates, right, with your management. And they should be ideally based on the industry benchmarking of the position under consideration. Then you need to talk to the top 3 selected candidates and reference check and make an offer of the total CTC between the current CTs and candidates' aspiration, leaving a scope for award division within the agreed maximum. The candidate should be asked to revert regarding how would they like to structure the CTC once you agree on a CTC. Then you candidates, once you work out that structure and the candidates accept the offer, the task ahead is to ensure his or her joining. If the offer is not accepted by any of the 3 candidates, then an offer has reached its maximum agreed limit on CTC, you either need to explore the remaining selected candidates for any of the 4 talks on the line. So this is how you go about making an offer and getting it accepted. The last step is to make sure that they join, because there are many slips between cup and the lip, right? So what do you do to ensure joining? Now, this is important to keep following up. You need to be in touch with them, because it may happen that company candidates may be lured back by the current organizations or by other companies. So what you need to do is to ask the person to resign from the current company as soon as he or she accepts your offer and send you a copy of the acceptance of the resignation. Then you need to get a shortest possible joining time from the joining, and this may require you to buy on the part of the notice period in his current organization, or consider which you can consider to do it and decide on its merit. Once that is done, you need to keep in touch with the joinee once a week to check the progress on his joining and ask him or her to keep exploring an earlier joining. And you can also ask your his or her direct manager to start engaging the joinee on the new assignment in terms of meeting him or her personally for a welcome dinner, asking him for information about sending him information about your company, asking him or her to read and revert with any question, asking him or her to join the company event if there are happening in the company, and start preparing his work plan for the year and encourage to seek minimum information, introduce him or her to his team, and start building, including him in the team of the person of that manager has. And this ensures that the person starts getting engaged and joining happens as planned. So having looked at how can you get the right people in this lecture, what do we do next? So if you have the right people onboarded, then you need to get best out of them. So the question is, how can you manage to them so that they give you your best? And that is the topic of the next module. So thank you so much for watching this first lecture in how to get right people giving their best to you in this course on pre-MBA for undergraduates. I hope you're beginning to learn new things in the HR management, especially on recruitment and selection, and you are enjoying it. And I do look forward to see you again in the next lecture.